Hello and welcome. Joining me today is Howard Finkelstein, the managing partner of HJF Law and a veteran attorney who spent the first half of his career in big law representing major banks and corporations. Today, Howard has reinvented his practice to serve as a part-time GC for high-growth startups ditching traditional legal models for something far more human. We are going to dive into his unique subscription billing model and why he believes hourly billing is actually disrespectful to clients. Howard, welcome to the Growth Switch.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's our pleasure. You've had quite a career trajectory, starting with working with big corporations, solving big transactions, and then deciding that you wanted to pivot and work with the startups. What was the motivation for change in that trajectory?
Well, the motivation really I didn't have that in mind exactly when I switched. I just had had enough of of the big firm life, the personalities and the stress and the well, a lot of things and the hourly billing. And so I decided to go on and just simply open up my own practice and see what happened. I actually thought that I would be able to attract big clients that I had served in big law, but that didn't. I realized pretty quickly that that wasn't going to work out because they're in the habit of they're addicted to big law, and you can't. It's very hard to pull them away. Litigators sometimes can, but corporate guys really can't. I said to myself, I have all these unbelievable skills that I've learned from the unbelievable work I did at Big Law, and how could I apply them? And right there, I happened to have like two or three clients who were startups right away, and I said, "Wow, this is the same thing. It's just on a smaller scale." And then I realized that not only is it on a smaller scale, but you also have the opportunity to help people really build a business. If I help Citibank make a loan, okay, it's another loan. But what's the difference? A founder comes to you and says, "I have this unbelievable idea, and I want to run with it." And I say, "Hold on a second. You have to do X, Y, Z, and you have to think about the pitch deck, and you have to think about partners, and you have to think about securities laws, and all those things." It really gave me such gratification that I said, "Wow, this is I should really be limiting myself to this." And so, basically I have, and it's been terrific. I'm old enough to quit, and I don't want to quit because I really enjoy my practice. And I enjoy my associates who I've trained to sort of be Bigelow attorneys, but we're Bigelow with having fun. So we enjoy our practice, and we take our work seriously, but we really, with each other, we're very at ease, and we can do what we want. We have fully remote. I work out of my youngest daughter's old bedroom, and everybody else works in their homes and whatever. And it's just very enjoyable, we've done a lot of things that we're proud of.
That's really good to hear. Take me to those early days when you start out, because you wanted to have freedom to practice law and help the clients that you couldn't do in a bigger
Yeah.
firm. Once you started your own practice, what were the hardest things in the business of law that you had to maybe address that you didn't have to as a part of the bigger organization?
Well, before I can do the hardest things, I will tell you what really became the easiest thing to somebody who had grown up in law in the 80s and 90s. And that was that you could really do it yourself. You don't need a secretary. You don't need somebody to plan your calendar. You don't need a Rolodex on your desk. You don't need paper anywhere. And it's so unbelievably easy compared to the way it was, 30 or 40 years ago. And that's the good part. And you don't have to attend meetings nonstop, attend in-person meetings nonstop. You could simply do it like this electronically. And as it turns out now, it's rare that I'm at a personal meeting. And so, what was the question?
The difficulties.
The difficulties were number one, finding clients, and that's a whole other story. We could talk about it later. Number two, realizing that you were burning cash at least in the early stages until you've had a good base of clients. But fortunately, I had enough saved up in my piggy bank, and my kids were all out of the house, and we managed, and then we got a few good clients right away. So it was very, it was just very good. And and the one thing that is really, it was and it still is a really painful thing, and that is dealing with
Mhm.
technology. In a big firm, you always had a tech guy or two tech guys or two tech women that would help you out with when your computer drops dead, or you can't find your documents or whatever. And I've had a lot of solutions, and actually this week I found maybe the best solution I ever had, and that is using AI to help you fix your problem. I had this problem that was persistent. We have a service that we retain, and they couldn't fix it. And son of a gun, I put it into AI, and they tell me what to do, and it was fixed like that. It was literally unbelievable. Just got fixed. And so
Mhm.
again, like everything has become. I mean, just a lot of the practical aspects of practicing law have become so easy that thank goodness, it's just a pleasure. So yeah, and but let me just tell you one story, and this goes
Of
into the
course.
billing stuff. And the first client I had started working with him when I was still with my last firm, and he came over. He was starting a business. He was, I don't know, making some type of drug. I can't remember what it was even. And he had a group of investors, and he said, "Could you come, meet with them with me?" And I'm in Brooklyn. He was up in upstate New York. And I figured I'd get in a drive. I'd drive down there and drive up there and have the meeting and whatever. So, being in the habit of hourly billing, I billed my 2 hour drive up and my 2 hour drive back. And I
Mhm.
gave him my bill for all the other time. And he said, "What are you doing? I can't pay you travel time."
Mhm.
And of course, this was what I grew up on. And I realized, right, I can't bill him travel time. And then he said, "Well, we're talking on the while we're on your bill. You have to give me some phone time that's free. If I call you for 15 minutes, I can't pay you. I have to just concentrate on building the business. I can't pay you for that 15 minutes." And I said, "You're right."
Mhm.
And I kept on thinking, this is exactly why I wanted to leave the big firms, and I want to help the clients. And if I want to help the clients and they don't have a lot of cash, but they have great expectations, I have to do something about the billing. Um, I cannot have a client come into me and say, "I have an emergency," and then hear what the emergency is and say, "Well, why didn't you call me 2 weeks ago?" And the guy says, "Well, I couldn't afford it. I wanted to save the money." I don't want that
Mhm.
to happen. If you have an emergency, if you have any problem, you should be able to call me without having economic consequences. And that's why I sort of dipped into the idea of, well, maybe I could solve this problem by charging basically for my months at a time. In other words, enter into an agreement where they will pay me a certain fee, which we estimate, and we get together and discuss. And that's a fixed fee. It's all you can eat. You get everything
Mhm.
you want from me for that period of time. Sometimes, as I say, sometimes I win the bet. Sometimes you win the bet. Overall, it should work out. And if you stay with me long enough, we will adjust the fee as time goes on to make us each happy. And that's the way it
Mhm.
started. So I've spent a lot of time developing this model and refining it. And obviously, for me, I mean, first of all, it's not bad to have even a small amount of money coming in from each client every month. Economically, it's just nice to know that these things are going to be paid, and you don't have to negotiate that fee like you have to negotiate when you're billing time. And number two, the deal is that when they get funding, there will be a payout. There will be a payout to our firm, and
Mhm.
that's something to work for, and something to hope for. You don't get it from everybody. Some of them will fold. Startups, the whole startups do not make it. That's for sure.
Mhm.
And as I say, okay, fine, it's a loss. Just like any VC, it's a loss. But you make it up with the other things, and you make it up with those that are successful, and that's what you do.
I think it is a great model because it makes the cash flow for your practice more consistent, more
Yeah,
predictable. And for a lot of clients, knowing in advance what their financial commitment is, it makes easier for them to seek proactively legal help,
yeah.
which actually can solve a lot of problems before they raise.
Right, and especially, I'm just to bring up this point. I work with clients all the time that are relying on recurrent monthly revenue. Every investor
Right.
wants to know how much is your RMR, how much is your RMR. So now I happen to be in that category. I know what my RMR is going to be at least for a few months ahead of time,
Hmm.
and it's not a bad way to run a business.
For sure. Do you think it's the right model for every type of law firm, or now that you've run it,
Uh,
you have certain criteria that you are thinking about?
I don't know if it's right for everybody. I think it's not. Let's put it this way: it could be the basis for a whole revolution in billing. I mean, obviously, there's some as the firm gets bigger, you can't. It's not necessarily easy to contain the firm in terms of, especially in terms of the ambitions of certain people working with you, which may be higher than your ambitions in terms of making money or your certain people. I mean, having been in the law firm world, a lot of guys come in with saying, "Oh, I have $1 million in business to bring into the firm," and sure enough, it turns out that he had maybe $200,000 business to bring into the firm,
Mm,
and so then he tries to milk it. He tries to sign engagement letters which tell him, "I'm going to pay you $100,000, whatever," and it never happens. So that in a big firm atmosphere, it's very hard to prevent those things happening. So,
hmm
I mean, I don't have any aspiration to grow like into 100-person firm or anything like that. I think that you could use it. You could, as long as everybody's really culturally on the same state, on the same in the same menu. I think you're good. It's very hard to maintain that for a large body of people who have diverse backgrounds, diverse needs, and things like that.
mm,
So whatever, we'll see what happens in the future. I mean, if I'm around, one of the things that is part of my our culture is that the associates I have, they will eventually become partners in the firm, and they will eventually take it over from me
hmm
because I'm not being going to be here forever. I tell them that all the time. I'm not going to be here forever. And they say they understand, and that this is a great opportunity for them. First of all, they have a great learning opportunity because I really spend a lot of time mentoring them and teaching them what I've learned. And secondly, they have basically the opportunity to build a business, continue building a business that I've started, and using the same clients and the same skills and the same motifs of building. So yeah.
When it comes to training your team, to follow up on what you just said, I think there is a training in terms of doing the work and then growing the practice and building their own book of business. For the training of actually practicing the law, what are the fundamentals that you focus on that you took from a big law and now you apply to your practice?
Well, things are different than than they are now. I mean, the way we were mentored in Big Law. One of the things was, I mean, when I drafted stuff and drafted something and hand wrote it, gave it to my secretary, who
Right.
typed it out in WordPress in a very something that we called word processing.
Hmm.
And I would take it to the partner I was working for, and the partner would sit down with me with a pencil and pen or whatever, and tell me, "Oh, this is wrong, cross out," and make right in front of me, and I say why, and he'd tell me why, and that was great mentoring. Now partners don't do that at all; they just basically they'll edit it themselves. So I go back to that model, and when I review documents with my associates, we sit down on Zoom or Slack and go over sometimes word by word, and sometimes we spend a long time, but they get it, and I give them a lot of responsibility, more responsibility than most first year lawyers, or well, whatever year they are, at big law firms, because I want them to understand that this is going to be their responsibility and they have to grow quickly. And sometimes there's a lot of pressure, and I tell them, don't hesitate to ask me questions. Don't hesitate to have me involved in what you're doing. I'm here for that. I want them to be able to take over stuff. And you know what? The process. I mean, we have an associate who's in her second year now, and at a certain point, about 6 months ago, I realized, man, she has really learned a lot. And I said, okay, you're no longer assigned to just the typical simple stuff. You're going to get an upgrade to doing the complex things as well. And sure enough, it's worked well.
Hmm.
So yeah.
I think that's one of the freedoms as well of having your own firm over being part of the bigger structure, that you can develop the way you train and promote and give
Hmm.
responsibility in a way that's more aligned with your values. What are the things that you've changed in that sense that's not something that's common for the big law? And what are the things that maybe you kept that practice showed as a still good standard to practice?
I'm not sure I have a prepared answer for that one, but I mean, we've changed. Well, one of the things we changed is that we are all part of a team, and there's nobody specialized in any individual type of efforts. In other words, everybody gets to do every kind of work. Everybody has been working with every single client we have. It's no such thing as my client and my associate and all that stuff. They're all available to every client. They meet them very early on. When we have a lot of our clients, we have part of our packages, and some of them want it. But part of our packages, that we could have weekly or biweekly meetings with them with no agenda, just ask me questions, whatever, like open house. And all the associates attend those meetings because it's a learning opportunity for them, and it's an opportunity for them to show off their skills to the
Hmm.
clients, and to speak, and to get it to be able to speak to them and be listened to. So these are the things that we do when we have time. Sometimes, obviously, you have to go a little quicker, but I'm at the point with my three associates right now that they get first cut at almost everything we do. They get first cut on almost everything we do. They get to do the background research, the writing and drafting, and at a certain over time I will get involved with them, but at least they do the initial work. Unless they're overwhelmed, in which case I have to go to the closet and take out my associate hat and do it myself.
Right.
It's funny. I remember one of the things that happened the first year in Big Law is that I did this memo for a memo for a partner. It was a legal memo, but and it was really good. And the guy said to me, he's reading it in front of me. I said, "Well, this is really good." He said to me, "I wish I could still write these memos, because
Hmm.
I don't have the time. Nobody would pay me the money to do it." And I said, "That's really not going to happen to me. I'm going to be in a position to do whatever I want." And I do. I take on things. I get on. I do research. I do. When I need it, when I want to, and that's really it. So it gives me a lot of opportunities,
You
and
enjoy the
especially
work
and
and
especially since I am not billing my time. It's like $2,000 an hour. I'm billing. I'm not billing my time at any time at any value. I'm simply working.
and adding value to your clients. And I'd imagine part of that also has with the ability to be proactive for the clients, because oftentimes there is collaboration between the law firm and the client only when something has happened.
Right.
By which point it might be too complicated, time consuming, expensive to solve the problem. I'm guessing
Hmm.
the way that you choose your work and working on a subscription model, you have more freedom to proactively address
Yeah.
something for the client
Yeah.
before it becomes an issue.
Right. And especially, again, there's another aspect of the model. It's not just the subscription model, but it's also fractional general counsel. And I know a lot of people sketch them, advertise themselves as fractional, whatever,
Hmm.
and all they mean is I'll bill you, 30 hours a week instead of 40 hours a week. That's not to my mind. Fractional general counsel means you're hiring somebody who will act as your, just like you would have somebody who is an employee who is your general counsel full time. We just cut off some of that time, but we're supposed to, well, we try to be there for when the client's making decisions, when the client's making plans, when the client needs to be told, hey, you can't market this by yourself. You have to do it. You have to hire some marketing people
Mm.
and things like that. And that's what that's what an in-house general counsel does. And we aspire to do that. So you're right. I hope that the clients get more from us than at least they do from the average outside lawyer. I've
Mm.
had, and believe me, I've been with outside lawyers. I've seen a lot of them operate, and they really do operate that way. They'll take a guy out to lunch and they'll say, tell me what the problems are, tell me what's going on, and that's fine. And I learned a lot from those people. But it's just not done as often, and we like that to be the consistent policy.
Howard, I want to ask you about the growing business part of running your practice, you mentioned that when you first transitioned into your own practice, it was one of the challenges actually finding the clients that were a good fit and you could work with. Is it still ongoing challenge? And what have you find work best to connect with the companies that you love working with?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't found any best. So let me just say this: in the history, and since I've been doing this, about 90% of the clients I have come from word of mouth. You know,
Hmm.
we've taken various steps to try to do, you know, sort of professional marketing, and haven't been very good at it. You know, it's I don't, you know, I mean, there are a lot of problems. Marketing is so it's such a fluid thing that you really don't know what you're doing. And I get like 20 emails a day from people who want to do this or that or the other thing, and tell me that all kinds of disaster stories based on my website and based on my LinkedIn or whatever, and I don't know where to go, you know. And we hired a marketing firm. Actually, the first firm I hired was a simple. At that time, it was right before COVID, and I hired a guy to do LinkedIn contacting,
Hmm.
and that, you know, a very simple job, because he had a basic profile of who we wanted to look at, and he had a script for the initial emails, and it seemed to work a little. That wouldn't work today because people are so bombarded with LinkedIn messages from people who want to market them, they just don't even recognize them anymore.
Hmm.
But that was fairly successful. Then we hired another firm a few years later to and they decided the best thing we could do is have a newsletter. We did a
Hmm.
newsletter for a year. It was a lot of work. We had to, you know, they would write the stories, but we had to give them the stories and edit them and all that. And then the next firm they did right. They posted on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and in social media. And again, we did a lot of work there because we had to write the stories, help them write the stories, and it didn't we got very little results. So now we're working with a firm that is trying to focus on SEO, and
Hmm.
it's a little more expensive and it's a little more selective. We've been only working with them since the beginning of the year. I can't tell you how it'll work out, but somehow, you know, we're different from other law firms that use heavy duty marketing, because most of the firms I see that are using heavy duty marketing are people with massive numbers of customers. You know, personal injury firms, divorce firms, those type of people. They need constantly people flowing through the door. If we get one client a month, we're great. I mean, we'll be overwhelmed if we get one client a month, because we do a huge amount, not a huge amount, but we do a steady amount of concentrated work for each client, and we have limits to how many clients we could tolerate.
Hmm.
So I'm just thinking, and I try to survey the field to see if other firms like me, like ours, do corporate work, whether they do SEO. And I somehow, and I'm not sure that they will, I think a lot of them don't at all. I think most of them just rely on word of mouth. And obviously there are other ways to generate word of mouth. That is to go to conferences and things like that. And maybe that's the best way. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure now.
I think what you spoke about, it will resonate with a lot of managing partners. The fact that there are so many different marketing trends, and especially over the last year, they've been changing at increasingly, rapid rate. So it's really
Yeah.
hard to say what is the right fit for you because, to
Yeah,
your point,
I just read something an hour ago where people are no longer responding to even little clipped stories in LinkedIn. They're not responding to that. They want the little soundbite, the 30-second soundbite coming out of an interview like this, say.
right?
So everything is in constant flux, I think. And you read, as you said, and the world hasn't found itself, but there are a lot of smart people thinking about these things. You just don't know who to believe.
How do you judge success of marketing for you? So, from different things that you've tried in the past and what you're doing right now, what does success look like, and how do you measure it?
I mean, success is really if I get to speak to somebody on the phone or on Zoom who is the type of client that we want. Basically, a founder of a small business, you know, basically a growing business, and that I would consider that a success. If I don't make the sale, that's on me. But I need people. I need to find those people. I mean, last summer I spoke at it was a conference, it was a one night presentation by some people who had been startups, and it was for startups. The successful people were speaking, and we sponsored that. And, I found that I got nothing out of it because most of these people were so behind. I mean, they were just like, I may have an idea, I haven't incorporated or anything. I don't know what I'm going to do, but they wanted inspiration the conference. But it's just a trial, and I just did it that way. But yeah, I mean, I, I mean, I'm not a great salesman, to tell you the truth. What sells is what I do, and my sincerity and my talent, skills.
I think a lot of lawyers will resonate with that because they don't want to see themselves as salespeople. They're experts, they're lawyers, they want to help, and they focus on helping, which sometimes can be detrimental to the sales
Yeah.
process. But it is in our nature. If you could have an ideal type of person, with a startup, see your message, learn about your subscription model, learn about how you can help them. What does the ideal client look like for you in terms of maybe the company size or the things that they're going through?
There's no rule in terms of company size. I think, first of all, I obviously, and we've taken people who are in weird, wacko businesses too, and they haven't exactly worked out. But I want a business that is, makes some sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I spend a lot of time with them trying to figure out how their business makes sense. And, obviously, you could get if too many businesses make sense in the same area, and some of them are going to get crushed out anyway. But in general, it's really the personality. There are certain people who could succeed, and certain people who simply can't. You have to have a spark, and you have to have sort of the ability to envision for the future where you see yourself going. You have to make fast decisions, and you have to make good decisions. And you can't be afraid to reverse yourself and go a different
Mm.
direction. So I mean, those are my ideal people. It really boils down to personality.
Mm. It
You
has to
know,
be a good fit because, like you
yeah,
said, for the firm of your size, getting one or two clients a month at a good fit, this is a lot more enjoyable because you have to get that freedom of how you help them and how you proactively work with them. That it's not about having a factory and churning over the relationships.
right, exactly.
Okay.
And I mean, one of the great things I got at Bigelow is the ability to sort of learn the business side of a lot of different industries or areas. So sometimes clients come to me with things that well, I got to say my biggest client is a crypto firm, and when they called
Mm.
me back in 2020, they said they needed a general counsel. They have very few employees, and I didn't know anything about crypto. I said to them, I don't know anything about crypto. He said, no, no, no. We just want a good lawyer who's going to have the patience to learn the stuff and deal with the kind of cowboys and Indians atmosphere that was prevalent in 2020.
I think for many startups, to your point, they might not have a law firm that they're working with constantly. Maybe they piece together different relationships and they don't have a general counsel. What's a good starting point for them to think about bringing somebody, maybe as a fractional, a general
Yeah.
counsel, so that they are protected going ahead?
Yeah, we have a motto that we always tell people: it's never too early to hire a lawyer. We see so many mistakes. Sometimes we'll get really good clients who have been working with lawyers to incorporate, or they work with companies like Stripe, which
Hmm.
I don't want to say anything bad about them on the air, but it doesn't give them a full view of what they need to see. And they come to us, and we have to spend more time fixing what they did wrong than they normally spend in just forming a company. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's never too early to hire a lawyer, and especially when you're not paying that much.
Always prevention is better than the cure. So before something happens, it's better to have somebody working with you and telling you
That's
what's
right.
ahead.
That's right. I mean, like for instance, there's this something called 83B, which is a huge tax break for people who found companies. And the thing about 83B is that you have to file it within 30 days of getting the stock in the company.
Mm.
And countless people. I mean, go through. They found the company, and then somebody says to them later, "Well, you did the 83B," and they said, "No, let me give it. Let me do it now." And I say, "No, sorry, you can't do it anymore." And yeah,
Proactive.
I mean, I once had a client once, unfortunately, who actually just grabbed documents off the internet and just had their counterparty sign them. And I
Mm,
said, like, you really, it's like fraud. I mean, you're defrauding yourself sometimes, but it's just not good. So I mean, it's great that a lot of things are available on the internet, but man, people still go so wrong with them, and there's not enough legal warnings, and that they shouldn't be using them.
for sure. Howard, when it comes to 2026, what's the biggest thing in your mind in terms of the next things coming for your firm?
Well, there are two themes that we have that we're not really dealing with yet, and then one is marketing, and the other is AI. We haven't sort of figured out. We know that AI going forward is going to be very important for us. Not, and we do actually use a lot of AI for research, for not just research, but sort of problem spotting and everything. Sometimes we go to multiple AI vehicles to see, make sure that we got these things right. But we have to do more of a better job, I think, organizing what we're doing, what we're going to do in
Mhm.
terms of documents and things like that. And it's painful, but we got to stop fooling around and doing it. So we are going to start doing that soon. That's one, and the second one is the marketing. I sort of want to develop a policy and a reality. It's a matter of talking to people and seeing what everybody else is doing, what they think. You know, cutting out all the noise from people you don't want to hear.
Getting clarity is always a good step. I had a guest recently that been investing heavily into the marketing of the firm since beginning of COVID. And one of the first thing that was his lesson that he shared is that getting on top of the numbers was the best thing. Knowing, what's every conversation is worth, knowing how people go from the conversation to clients, because without it, you can't really understand anything else when it's a good investment into the marketing or not, unless you
Yeah,
have the numbers ready.
yeah, absolutely. And in fact, one of my associates yesterday was telling me that we really need to get more client feedback, more systematic client feedback.
Mm.
And it's sometimes painful, but you really have to get it. And she's right, and we're going to try to make an effort to get that too.
Certainly. And one of the things, I don't know if this is something that you've implemented, but it could be helpful maybe this year. With the ability to record and analyze calls with AI, one of the fascinating things you can do for your marketing is to see the patterns. If you're working with startups, what are the same questions being asked? Because the chances are not only your clients are asking those questions, but other companies like
Everybody.
them. And then you can answer those questions and attract the right clients to you.
It's true. It's true. You're right. It's a good point.
Perfect. Well,
Very good
Howard,
point.
it's been a pleasure having you with us today. Where can people find more about you and your law firm online?
Well, hjflaw.com, www.hjflaw.com, and our LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn page, Howard Law Offices of Howard J. Finkelstein, and you can go to my personal LinkedIn page, Howard J. Finkelstein. I think I'm the only one there with that J, and that's it. Or you can contact me at Howard at HJF Law. That's it.
We'll make sure we'll link it in the description as well. Howard, thank you again
Thank,
for coming on today.
thank you, Alex. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.